ahead to our final panel discussion for IICS Conference 2025. And it highlights the cold chain backbone of high-value, temperature-sensitive global chain, preserving quality, powering trade, the future of the global cold chain ecosystem. The cold chain industry is undergoing dramatic transformation, driven by digital visibility, cleaner technologies, and integrated transport networks. Today's leaders will unpack what it takes to build a future-ready cold chain ecosystem that upholds quality, prevents waste, and enhances competitive advantage. First, I would like to call on stage our absolutely wonderful moderator for this session, Mr. Ryan Viegas, a consultant for pharma and healthcare industry. He's a consultant specializing in pharma and healthcare supply chains. He brings significant know-how in regulatory logistics, distribution strategy, and a global trade facilitation, helping ensure complaint efficient delivery. Ladies and gentlemen, let's put our hands together for Mr. Ryan. Welcome, sir. Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Pharma, Senior Director, APAC, CSafe, with deep expertise in cold chain innovation, global life sciences logistics, and cross-regional distribution networks. He drives CSafe's growth and strengthens critical supply chain capabilities across Asia-Pacific markets. Welcome, Mr. Pharma. Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Rituparna Chaturvedi, Country Manager, CRYOPDP. He oversees cold chain distribution, logistic coordination, and supply chain integrity for the company's pharma and temperature-sensitive product portfolio, ensuring compliance and reliability in complex global distribution network. Welcome, Mr. Chaturvedi. Moving on next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Vishal Jaiman, Sector Head Healthcare SEO DP World. With strong expertise in regulated logistics and global trade facilitation, he plays a key role in ensuring reliable, standards complaint movement of healthcare products across DP World's network. Welcome, Mr. Vishal. Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Pratyush Kumar, Vice President Supply Chain, Glenmark Pharmaceuticals. With significant experience in pharmaceutical supply chain management and regulatory complaint logistics, he ensures efficient end-to-end delivery of Glenmark's products across global markets. Welcome, Mr. Kumar. Next, I would like to invite on stage Mr. Surendra Deodhar, Vice President and Head Materials Management, Reliance Life Sciences. He leads materials management at Reliance Life Sciences, overseeing procurement, inventory control, and supply chain logistics for the company's biotech and pharmaceutical operations. Welcome, Mr. Surendra. Over to you, Mr. Ryan. Have a wonderful panel discussion.
Thank you for the nice introduction. Good afternoon, friends. I hope some of you are already had lunch or still hungry. So for those who are hungry, I'm sure we'll finish within the given time of 50 minutes. I'd like to introduce this topic. As was already said, we are talking about the future of global cold chain ecosystem. So we're talking about preserving quality, powering trade, and some of the points that we plan to discuss, how reliable would be the cold chain networks, what about the challenges in cold chain, how about collaborative platforms which are there, which can help us improve the cold chain infrastructure and real-time monitoring. Sustainability, we're going to talk about sustainability, low-carbon technologies, eco-friendly refrigerants. We're also going to talk about the current state of infrastructure and how would that support seamless cold chain corridors across the supply chain network. Also, some lessons from the pandemic. I'm sure we're still learning lessons, and not only pandemic, but so many geopolitical situations. So these are some of the areas where we plan to discuss. And we are very fortunate to have a very experienced panel of experts, very senior level people. We have three stalwarts from the service providers, one from CSafe, one from CRYOPDP, and one from DP World. And we have two other stalwarts from the pharma industry, one from Glenmark and another from Reliance. So pharma and biological companies. So we have a very varied group of people, and most of these colleagues are utilizing cold chain, very cold chain, and I'm sure the knowledge and sharing which we will get in this seminar, in this discussion, will help us to learn a lot as well as share. Also, I request some of you from the audience, I wish all of you don't sleep, so I would request some of you to ask some questions. So that will be very, very nice, so that we also feel, that we are part of a discussion. So I'll start off with the first question which I have for my friend Vishal here. Vishal, can you highlight how reliable cold chain networks are redefining competitiveness in the global pharma or food and high-value perishable trade?
Thank you, Ryan, for the very first question, and I think a very fundamental one when we talk about cold chain, especially in the pharma domain. Now, pharma itself as an industry has been evolving much at a faster rate as compared to any other industry. And I think we can see that post-COVID, especially from the Indian companies who have now transformed from their genetic portfolio to more of a biologics or a biosimilar approach. Now, the new set of products which are coming into the market are definitely very crucial for the cold chain maintenance. When we talk about the infrastructure in place, we always had the sufficient infrastructure to modulate the kind of products we are moving both domestically and international. However, this is changing rapidly because of the change of nature of the product as well. Having said that, when we look at the entire cold chain end-to-end movement, what we have to look into is the first mile, the ports, airports, or the ocean leg, and also in transit ability to maintain those temperature. If you're talking about reefer, then of course we're talking about uninterrupted power supplies, real-time monitoring whether the container or the packaging solution is performing up to the mark. And then of course we're talking about the infrastructure at the ports and the airports at the destination, which ensures that the products are kept in the required guidelines and not actually impact the quality of the product itself. So with that, the infrastructure definitely needs a much more improvement to keep up the pace with the industry is currently moving into. But yes, I think we are there, but yes, a lot more to be done.
Thanks, Vishal, for your opening remarks. Maybe Jez would like to add something.
Yeah, I mean, having worked in the airline industry prior to joining CSafe and packaging, I mean, the first thing I learned traveling around the world and seeing different airports is that no airport's actually designed to handle cargo, let alone providing appropriate storage and stowage facilities to provide temperature control. And I think that provides a major area of complexity in terms of the understanding that people have when it comes to moving something from one side of the world to another. The good news is, with the focus and the value that's seen in supporting cold chain, maybe that's something that has been driven a lot by what happened in COVID, that we start to see improvements and more considerations given to the handling of temperature-sensitive cargo. But I mean, from a packaging solution provider side, I think one of the key messages that we hear, whether it's from an airline, a freight forwarder, or a pharmaceutical company, is that they want to have more transparency of what's going on. So understanding what happens when the product is placed into a package, the transportation to the airport or to a seaport, that long period of time when there's next to no visibility because it's on the sea or it's up in the air, and then what happens right to the point of the last mile delivery. It's something that CSafe has certainly considered and invested a lot in providing, not just focusing on the boxes, but also in providing data and supporting visibility of what's going on.
Thank you, Jez. We like to move on to a little bit of technology. Uh, Not only technology, but how do collaborative platforms or data sharing or interoperable systems reduce inefficiencies across the supply chain? And the role of IoT, blockchain, etc., for ensuring end-to-end visibility and temperature integrity across the supply chain. So for this, I would request Rituparna, if you could share his views, and maybe Vishal, if you can follow up on something.
Hello. Thank you, Ryan. So I'd like to answer it in a case study, basically, which was a real-time incident which happened like during one of my customers' shipment. So the role of was basically a IoT device, which is GPS plus GSM technology based data loggers. So for that, like it was a very high value shipment, and it was supposed to move by ocean. So as a one shipment, there were 3 reefer containers, all set at the same temperature, all started at the very same time, all were supposed to depart from the same shipping schedule, from the same port as well. And at the very same time, since this was a requirement from the customer side, where actually they wanted the complete visibility of the temperatures right when the shipment is stuffed at the factories and it is moving towards the port area. And it was the consignee raised alarm basically because all the three, the temperatures of all the 3 containers were not exactly behaving in a very similar way. So that actually has questioned them that there's something wrong. But even when we checked and we asked the driver to halt, we sent the guy as an escort to check basically if there's anything wrong. Everything was performing perfectly. And since it was a deployment of this particular loggers, which is a GPS GSM, which was throwing the signal. So we discovered it is basically the make of the containers were different. Like it was the container, something has been built maybe in a batch of say maybe 5 years old, and then the other 2 were the newer technology, newer insulation container. So that's where actually there was but that's how precise the industry is looking for the visibility on the temperature side. So that's something which we have been using, and it's a GPS GSM based data loggers, and I think that's a good solution for the industry. Yeah.
So I think in terms of visibility and infrastructure, we have the technology stack, right? And we talk about different integrators of the logistics in the entire supply chain from end to end. What is the next step of evolution? What we should be expecting is how do the handshake between at the checkpoints between one service provider to another service provider, or we talk about multimodal or integrated logistics. How is that happening? Because individual level, I think everybody is quite invested and have a very detailed understanding about how to deploy an IoT, how to put let's say, a track and trace mechanism. But what is important is how does it work when we are talking about change of hands? So that would be an interesting, I think, next step of evolution, what we could see, where there's a seamless visibility for the suppliers or the manufacturers. And this can probably be achieved by integrating backend through a blockchain or an AI model. That's something I think we should be expecting next.
Thank you. Thank you for sharing. Sustainability is a buzzword nowadays. I don't think there's any discussion where we don't talk about sustainability. And therefore, I put this next question to Surendra first. Can you share your views on how balancing energy-intensive operations with low-carbon technologies, eco-friendly refrigerants, and circular packaging can help in sustainability? Surendra, please.
Probably I'm little ill-equipped to address this particular question. But sustainability, as you rightly said, I mean, it's ingrained into anything and everything that we talk about. It's not a domain by itself. It's a part of everything that we are talking about. It's like, okay, everybody has to be honest when we are kids. That is something which was taught to us. So sustainability is something like this. It's a basic thing that everybody wants to have. It becomes difficult to achieve in case of cold chain management very specifically because of the kind of partial loads that we move. It is easier to achieve in bigger loads, But partial loads typically when the payload and packaging is almost 5-6 times bigger, and most of them are not easily recyclable. Even if it is recyclable, it involves reverse logistics, which itself is a carbon footprint creator. So it's a challenge. It's a challenge. I think everybody is trying to solve it in their own way. I don't know if there is a perfect solution as of now.
So maybe
All
we'll
are
ask,
struggling.
maybe we'll ask Jez if he can add something.
Well, from my perspective, I think the biggest question is how invested are people, how invested are companies in sustainability? Whatever industry we look at, there's big promises, there's big targets in terms of CO2 emissions. Are they ever actually going to be hit by 2035, 2050? We have to wait and see. But we've certainly seen changes in the way that sustainability is being looked at and addressed. In the good old days of an RFQ being sent out, it was just a spreadsheet, slap a few numbers in there, and decisions made based on price. Before you get that spreadsheet today, it's very much sustainability questionnaires, sustainability audit almost. But I mean, sustainability also comes at a cost. So as a packaging provider, we're spending a lot of time looking at how we can adjust the solution so that they become more sustainable. Active containers you can't change. They are sustainable because they are constantly in reuse. When you go down to traditional passive shippers, that's where the challenge exists. Particularly when addressing the proposal to a pharmaceutical company, they don't go from A to B back to A. So what can that box, or how can that box be reused, ideally, or then how you manage the return logistics? Sustainability of flying empty space, that's not considered sustainable. So can the pharma industry, two competitive firms, work together because they actually have back-to-back supply chains? But I mean, yesterday, for anyone who was here, I mean, we unveiled what I believe is the first to market reusable thermal blanket. So instead of it being aluminium foil, and please don't quote me for calling it aluminium foil, we've invested some of our technology and time to create a solution that is now reusable. So we certainly excited about how that impacts our own approach to sustainability. It just depends on how the industry wants to take that up.
Can I just add a sentence? I mean, my feeling is, very frankly, sustainability is extremely difficult to be achieved at an individual level, at a firm level. The entire network, the whole ecosystem has to be sustainable. As just rightly said, I mean, there's no point in getting things back. So you need some usage, some way to recycle it at that end, and somebody else to take care of this. It's like an Uberization of that whole network. That's something which will work.
Absolutely right. I don't know whether I'm not an expert, but I'll ask, before I ask Ritu to add, because he's from CRYOPDP, PDP. Yeah. So actually, I don't know whether it's possible to have a standardization of all these equipment where you can have, cross usage, especially of some of the products. I know there's competition, but if there's standardization, we feel as a user, it's possible to reuse these boxes for different service providers, as long as they agree. Because the cost of reverse logistics is phenomenal. Okay, so, and that's where most of the users, the pharma companies and food companies, resist this. So it becomes a one-time use, and when we talk a lot about wastage and sustainability. So this is one aspect which I had in mind, but maybe Ritu, you can also add your views on this.
Yeah, so see, as an organization like who deals only into the temperature control shipments, which is very high value, which is very critical, direct to patients. So what we ensure, basically what we have learned over this, that we precisely propose an optimal packaging for that respective shipment. It should not be an overpack, it should not be an underpack. So it should be like you have to precisely calculate the size of the shipment, then you have to propose the packaging around it. And we believe in using a multi-use boxes. As you rightly mentioned, that if that box can be used by my counterpart as well for his shipment traveling to some other part of the world. So that's how we've been actually aligning to that the sustainability model. But it's a basic discipline, as Surendra also mentioned, that basically it starts from the first step of your journey itself. The another thing which I like to also add here is, we all talk about sustainability. There's a prerequisite in the RFI sheet. Everything is there, but when we look at the whole world, the products, the cycle of that particular product, that should also be included into. It's not just the freight part of it. How that product has been built, what are the carbon emissions which that product is incurring while it is being produced. That should also be included into the whole cycle of that sustainability model. That's what I feel. That will be the right approach, I think. Yeah.
I think a lot of value-added knowledge is coming across in this discussion. So thank you guys for sharing. I'll move to Pratyush now. Okay, so Pratyush, as a pharma company, when we talk about infrastructure, how does building seamless cold chain corridors across air, ocean, surface reduce bottlenecks and costs? So can you share some of your experiences?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hello, am I audible? Yeah. Good afternoon, and thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak. Look, in pharmaceutical industry, we make medicines, and to ensure that right from the manufacturing unit to the hand of customer, the potency is not degraded, stability is maintained. This uninterrupted supply chain is very, very critical. So there are 3-4 aspects to that, if I like to summarize. First is the manufacturing and storage. That has to be in the proper environment. Say if the medicine says 15 to 25 degree Celsius, then the environment should be there. Accordingly, if it says 2 to 8 or negative in case of biologics or plasma, then the manufacturing has to happen in that particular facility, which has to be audited. Second part, when it comes for transportation, right from the warehouse, in which form we pack it, the proper gel pack, thermal covers, so that the temperature is maintained, and then loading it into the container or the truck, which has the maintained temperature in that, whatever is defined on the packaging and what we claim in our medicines. So these all are happening. What is missing is right now, or maybe we can improve upon, is the SOP for that. Manufacturing units have the SOP. What about the transportation companies? Do they have SOP? And the personnel who are trained in that SOP, and how do we ensure that the personnel follow that SOP? Right from the truck, then it is unloaded at the seaport or the airport. There the cold storage facilities, are they audited, maintained? Are they GMP or GDP compliant? And second part is the tarmac of the airport. That particular is one weak link still, I believe, where we can do some improvement. Though the costlier solutions are there, but due to the cost, sometimes it gets avoided or due to unavailability. So that is one part where really in our chain, in total supply chain, the improvement is required. Then when it arrives, many airports, how many airports across Europe or in US have the pharma supply chain cold room? That's also one thing which we have to see, because only few have that, and that become congested. So, and then when the pickup is there and the last mile, their entire chain, I would like to focus on just one thing. One is right now the infrastructure is there. We need trained people who are GDP compliant as per US FDA guidelines, and someone is following that. One more thing which helps. A few years back, we had passive data loggers. So when the goods were unloaded at our warehouses, different countries, then someone would take out the data logger, quality person will read out the data, then we'll come to know. Fortunately, now we have IoT, where we have active data loggers or systems which will give you alert, and what just was mentioning that during the temperature, during the transit also, we get the information of our consignment. So that's one good part which has happened in recent years, and I'm sure it will improve upon. And that's all. It's uninterrupted from manufacturing unit to the hands of patient. That's very much important. Thank you.
Thanks, Pratyush. Surendra, related to this point, I mean, you are in Reliance and you're doing a lot of biologics with very, very cold temperatures. So do you see any challenges about the availability of such cold chain storage facilities in and around the area where you operate from? And what do you expect from the trade?
Well, we definitely, in Reliance, just to set the context, we handle all kinds of temperature products, 15 to 25, 2 to 8 degrees, minus 20, minus 20, minus 30, as well as there is something which requires minus 196 degrees, there's a cryopreservation. So it becomes, and it's inbound cargo as well as outbound cargo, both require that. We also get plasma in, maybe some fraction paste in, etc., etc. So it becomes challenging to make sure. And as far as the infrastructure, cold chain, friends, cold chain is it's a relay race, obviously, and it's an incredibly, I would say, challenging relay race to do that. Just to create a parallel, if I were to walk out of this particular exhibition, I just have to get up, go out, and that's it. But if it was a jail, if I had to break a jail, look at some of those jailbreak documentaries. The amount of planning that is required to just go out of a jail is incredible. Sometimes I feel managing a cold chain is something similar to that. It requires a very, very precise planning. At every stage, as Pratyush said, I mean, it's not enough to say that a transporter is coming and picking up. Where will he stand? For how long will it take for loading? What is the equipment that you're going to use? Is there going to be a dock leveler? Etc., etc. Every minute detail has to be done. And I think that level of precision also requires not just infrastructure, but the people who are putting up that infrastructure. We have seen people putting up excellent infrastructure, but not operating it. I'm sure most of us would have witnessed these kind of things. Or people having excellent infrastructure, but didn't know how to operate it. We've also experienced situations where in 2 to 8 degrees the cold room was busy, somebody kept the cargo in minus 20 without knowing. So I mean, infrastructure availability itself was a challenge, but it is increasing significantly. There's a layer of infrastructure, there's a layer of packaging, there's a layer of operations, there's a layer of, I would say, actual ground level working. At all levels, things are changing.
Excellent sharing. I think Jez wants to add some.
Yeah, I mean, I think one of the biggest challenges, you can put the best infrastructure in place, you can have the perfect packaging, everybody knows what's going on, but there is no standardization about moving a box from one country to another. I mean, if you look at Brazil, for example, paper heaven, but you send something from India to the US, everything's done electronically. Put one word wrong on an airway bill, USDA will stop it. Another country, well, they'll just a polite inquiry, it's been resolved. So I know from my times at the airline and everything, and the talk was all about digitalisation, removing paper from the chain and allowing all systems around the world to talk. The biggest challenge is every country, every region has different rules.
Thanks, Jess, for sharing. I think, Rituparna, maybe the next question goes to you, and this is, you can add something on the quality management systems and lane assessment for cold chain, but also could include harmonizing cross-border standards and certifications. So could you share your thoughts on this?
Yeah, thanks, Ryan. So, like as a compliant service provider, obviously we all know that we need to be GDP certified. We need to have the the quality management systems perfectly implemented within your organization. When you are handling pharma, which is a highly regulated product, and as Jess mentioned, there's no standardization. So every regulation will talk about a different requirement. So that is where a precise, say, planning, as Surendra mentioned, and also a lane risk assessment like that becomes the currently the, I would say, the thumb rule basically for every shipment, because that will provide you a clear visibility of, as a simulation, that what may go wrong at what stage, from which route. So it needs to be a kind of a continuous assessment document. It cannot be just one a document which you have built for that particular lane and then you just follow it, because the shipment goes through a different temperatures, different weather conditions, and there are constantly upgrading infrastructures also. Sometimes some airport does not has, maybe next shipment may have that kind of infrastructure. So your assessment is a kind of a regular document which the organization needs to maintain and keep on upgrading basis on what are the changes which has been implemented by the carrier, by the airport operator, by the GHAs, by the transporters which we are using. And that is something which adds on to the planning part, basically. So that's something which I feel like for the product like Pharma, which is a highly regulated product, that is one of the things how you can ensure that the temperatures will remain and the quality of the product can be delivered. Yeah.
Thanks. I just wanted to add, I also understand that there are companies who maintain this data and they validate this data as long as all the users become part of sharing the data. So, for example, if pharma company or service provider uses this data, he has to log in his lanes and monitor, it'll be monitored, and all the data is monitored in that lane. So, for example, how many times there was escalation across lane A to B, how many times there was escalation between A to C, all that is monitored. You may not get to know whose shipment it was, but you'll get to know the lane. So I think these are areas where this is being validated in such a way that based on, you can say, percentage of compliance, many lanes are being validated, and therefore even for the actual users of pharma companies and food companies who are compelled to look at cost, then you'll realize you got to take a balance between cost and compliance. So then you understand, if I want to save money, I could lose 100 times more. So this is where I think new trends are moving in this direction. You wanted to add something, Jess?
Well, I just want to return back to a word I used earlier. It's transparency. We have so much data out there. It's just how can we use that data without transgressing different legal policies and data protection. Yes, we don't need to know who the shipper was, who the carrier was. It's the lane that's the most important thing. And the world is changing from a climate perspective. What we knew 10 years ago on a lane is very different today.
Sure. I think now we come to the famous question of lessons from the pandemic. Not only pandemic, but geopolitical shocks, which we are aware of, different countries becoming more controlled and impacting the global world. So how do you feel, Vishal, I'll put this to you, how do you feel these volatility in the pandemics or geopolitical situations, whether it's war, whether it's certain restrictions or controls by certain countries, how is it going to impact redesigning of agile cold chain networks?
So I think as we famously say a lot in logistics industry, change is the only constant. And that's why, since our suppliers, our manufacturers are changing the way they operate, it is only logical that the service providers also evolve and adapt to the changing needs. Now, with that, when we talk about the changing cold chain dynamics and the geopolitical impacts, I think the crucial part is being on top of the regulatory framework. understanding of cross-border regulations and compliance. Having sit in, in let's say India or this part of the continent, it may not be very feasible for everyone to understand how the European regulations looks like. So what we need is it's basically a platform where we can get a seamless update of the real-time changes happening in terms of compliance or regulatory by any country which we trade with. It can pretty much be coupled with, let's say, if we have certain green corridors for certain products within the life sciences domain, that should certainly help bring that uniformity of the cross-border challenges in terms of avoiding any last-minute hiccups and ensuring that the transit time is maintained as we originally planned. And then, of course, when we talk about the lane mapping or lane validation, this is a continuous exercise. Any aspect of the original lane mapping, if it is altered, it is only obvious that we do the lane mapping again. It can be as simple as the weather conditions or the time of the year. The lane mapping which is done in summer may not work for winter, especially if, let's say if you are flying to Europe, the temperatures are sub-zero. So that's one thing. Second thing is, even if you're changing the flight duration, the original flight, let's say the transshipment flight was flying out in night time versus the new flight which is flying out, let's say in afternoon, that changes the whole dynamics. And it also impacts how the packaging, especially the passive packagings, what we talk about, how they perform in such changing dynamics, right? So keeping all this in mind, there has to be a uniformity of information flow. This can be achieved maybe through the IoT devices, which collect real-time data, and when you look at the large scale of, let's say, a year or so, you can generalize it to some extent and then modify what you want to plan next.
Thanks. Jez, would you like to add something on this?
Where do I start? No, I mean, first thing I would say, I mean, the pharma industry has learnt a lot from COVID, and I think there's a lot of changes that we're going to see moving forward. But I think anyone who is involved in the logistics industry should stand up, pat themselves on the back for what is an industry slightly behind the times. I don't think there's anyone who will say that logistics is modern. There's still too much paper, etc. Even I hear faxes still being sent. But the industry demonstrated it can be agile when it was needed most. I know for CSafe, we were put under a lot of pressure by one of the major vaccine producers for COVID. We had a dedicated team that designed, developed, and tested a packaging solution that helped start distributing their particular vaccine around the world, something that as a company we are very proud of. But we had to work with all the other stakeholders in that supply chain to make sure that we could deliver. But a lot of that was dependent on knowledge, transparency in terms of what was needed, and that wasn't just necessarily from those involved, but regulators providing their input. So I think it's a big learning point. I think the biggest challenge now is Donald Trump.
Very good. So maybe I may put you, Pratyush, on the spot. I don't mean with respect to any particular person, but with respect to sanctions. Okay, sanctions also is becoming an issue to move products from certain points to another point. And I don't know, we discussed a particular experience which you had, and maybe if you'd like to share it, it would be very nice. Okay.
Sure. There was a time when liberalization was a thing across the globe. Maybe now with the new US president, it's more compartmentalization of their own countries. They don't want all products or services from other countries, and that's a tariff is one of the way to stop that. Plus the sanctions on Russia. How to do business in Russia, because banks won't operate. There are very limited options now. Shipping agencies, insurances, many countries. Maybe tomorrow Venezuela, Iran, I don't know, we don't know, many countries can be out there where a particular global leader can put a sanction, and if you want to do business with that particular country, then you can't do business with XYZ countries. These all are geopolitical scenarios where we have to face challenges. I would like to restrict to the logistics part. In logistics, movement of ships, airlines, insurance, and payments. All three get impacted when a country gets, say, sanctioned. So maybe that is going to have a long-term negative effect on the business put together. That's one point.
Thanks for sharing. And we talked a lot about hardware, no? We're talking about hardware, and I think hardware is very important aspect, infrastructure is very important aspect. But what about the software? I don't mean technological software, I'm talking about human software. So one of the most important things is the human being. You know, however good software you have, let's look at the apps which we have in India, where you get your fruit and vegetables home in 10 minutes, or medications in maybe 12 hours. So yes, the technology is fantastic, but end of the day, it's a person who is coming to deliver the product to your place. So I'm assuming if he's not trained well, if he doesn't know the process, if he doesn't handle your product well, it's going to impact the product which is reaching, which is temperature sensitive, which reaches the patient. So the question is a general question, but I would ask Surendra first because you're a lot into training. What can the industry do to increase, number one, awareness and training, and also, you know, make it attractive for more and more, you know, university students to get involved in the cold chain, because there's such a big opportunity, as you can see here. The opportunities are tremendous. If there are challenges, the opportunities are much more. So I mean, we have to look at it that way. There's so much of opportunities. So what can industry do? One different aspect, maybe the companies can do something, the service providers can do something, education institutions can do something. So I'd like to ask Surendra to please start something on this, discussion on this.
Hello, yeah, I'm audible. So I think that's the most relevant question, because irrespective of everything that's perfectly in place, ultimately, as we said, it's an incredibly complex relay race. And at every step, every step, either the quality is getting added, preserved, or destroyed. And if the human being who human in the middle in this entire loop, who's not operating, it's going to be a disaster. It's a disaster. If you go by some experiences, and I'm not relating to only Reliance Life Sciences experiences, because I'm associated with, let's say, other institutes or other organizations, drawing more experience from that. So I think the kind of examples that we have seen people operating with, they really, it's not just the lack of knowledge. I think it's lack of knowledge, lack of sensitivity, lack of empathy, lack of emotions, lack of understanding of the implications. People feel that, I mean, if I know that if I'm not doing something, it's going to affect somebody, it's going to cost somebody, it can be as serious as loss of life for somebody, I'm sure the person will become much more sensitive to that. Nobody wants to harm anybody else. But then, so awareness is at different levels. One, at a trade level or at a level of attracting talent. I think there are institutes or there are conferences like this. There are institutes which are running different kind of supply chain courses. There are lots of them which are talking about it. But we don't see much of cold chain aspect getting into that. It's more traditional and it's more towards Amazon kind of supply chain that people talk about, or the, let's say, the big FMCG kind of things that are more talked about, less in terms of this. So that's one channel of thing. Once people are aware of it, secondly, then the know-how of it. What does it actually mean? Because there are small things happening. If you look at any box, a simple passive shipment box to be packed, it has to be done in a very particular way. So there is skill involved in making that happen. So one is awareness, second is the skill level that is to be done. And it happens only out of repeated things. Thirdly, if something goes wrong, then what to do? How do you react to that situation? People are not really equipped to handle troubleshooting. We've had situations when somebody didn't have, there was a pallet cargo and the aircraft was not able to load it. The person didn't know what to do it. He practically broke it. He broke the pallet, he put it into two small containers and sent it because he just didn't know what to do. And when you are not physically present there, it's very difficult to do that. Thirdly, in terms of knowledge, I'm also reminded of an incident when I was discussing with somebody. He said, the ground staff, which is at handling at different airports across the world, each airline will have their own way of, own policies, own infrastructure, own SOPs, etc. But the ground staff which is handling it is all practically the same. They are providing service to X and Y and Z. So how are they equipped to do that? So I think this training, education, awareness, skill level understanding goes at a very, very different level as far as different things are concerned.
Thanks, Surendra. I don't know whether anybody else would like to add, maybe Jez or Vishal.
Yeah, so I think my experience in cold chain industry has more been, it's an on-job learning for everyone who has ever made into the. There is no formal way you can academically learn so far. But I think things are changing, and like Surendra sir mentioned that we have institutes now who are offering cold chain academic relations. The thing is, it has to be more acceptable. People need to be made aware that this is an industry they can make career out of. That is probably still missing, in my opinion, because like I said, first of all, people don't aspire to become a logistician. It just happens. And within logistics or within the manufacturing side, if you talk about further niche category of cold chain, that's probably not very well known of. So in terms of generating the awareness that this is a long-term game, and across all the sectors, pharma and the perishable products as well, cold chain demand is only going to grow. So there is absolutely a long-term approach which one has to take, and as an industry, I would say experts who have spent more than 10 years in the industry, it's probably the onus is somewhere on us to be able to convey that message that this is something one can make a career out of.
Yes, would you like to?
Yeah, I mean, awareness training, you can spend hours trying to teach someone, but I think the critical part is making it more personal. And the beauty of pharmaceutical cold chains is that everybody at some point in their life is going to need that medicine, or a family member is going to need that medicine. I'm a type 1 diabetic of, I was going to give away my age, but slightly more than 30 years. And I remember walking into a warehouse at an airline, and I asked the guys, do you know what you're actually pushing there? And they were pushing an active container, a CSafe one, thankfully. And I said, do you know what's actually inside there? Do you know why you've spent a day, 2 days in training courses, online training, listen people, talking to them? And they said, well, to be honest, no. Well, they need to know what's inside there. Because if they mess it up, that means that there's somebody's life at the very end of it is going to be impacted. So I just pulled out the insulin pen, told a little lie and said, it's full of this. If you don't do it well, then it's my life who's impacted at the end of the day.
So absolutely right. I think, we had a very detailed discussion. And before we close, I just wanted to know if there are any questions from the audience.
Do we have any questions from our audience? Anyone? Yes. Yes, sir.
Thank you very much, sir. It was a very interesting and detailed discussions. Regarding the cold chain, sir, whenever there is a deliveries are there from one high temperature zone to a minus temperature zone, whenever you have to maintain some temperatures not sub-zero, say plus 4, 5, 7, then in sub-zero you may require it to heat it or not, or some other methods are there. Sometimes you have to cool it in a start point and heat it at the last point. Maybe.
If I may answer your question, See, there are now the packaging. See, we have two different, as we spoke about, we have active and the passive packaging, which is there for any cold chain shipment transportation. So active containers generally has this kind of a coil-based heating and compressor-based cooling system. So it will change over with the and will behave as per the required temperature, which needs to be maintained inside the temperature. Basis on the outside temperature variation. When we talk about the passive packaging, we have now the advanced PCM. This is phase change material, which is artificially they have changed the freezing and the melting point of that particular chemical. So it also behaves in kind of releasing and absorbing the energy, and as compared to what is the temperature outside and maintaining the temperature for a defined validated period. So that's how the cold chain works basically.
And regarding the humidity of the atmosphere, if it is changing, how it is managed?
See, for the humidity generally, the packaging will not have this a function to, maybe if Jess can answer, maybe the active containers can maintain that humidity.
Yeah, I mean, so in all of CSafe's active containers, whether it's the RK and the RAP, and the same in our hybrid solution, the APS, we have a real-time track and trace device, and that's recording not only GPS location, payload temperature, ambient exposure temperature, but we also have humidity, tilt, and shock. So that information is available, and we can also provide that with the more standardized passive solutions, because we have a suite of data loggers, real-time and single-use, that can help to provide that data for you.
Thank you very much.
May I take one as well? Thank you. I'm Vipin Jain. One question. Yesterday also there was a discussion, deliberation on temperature variation. I will use the word not excursion or incursion, but variation, and on ramp side or tarmac side, which was mentioned today as well. So do we have some data like how much variation has happened on the tarmac? I think that is the main pain point. Yesterday also we discussed, today again this topic had come up. So if any one of you has any idea.
Maybe I can take the first. So the response of packaging while the shipment lies on tarmac depends on various factors. The location, if it is Middle Eastern, we can expect this to be on a higher side. And the duration at which this tarmac, the shipment or the packaging is left at tarmac. Now, having said that, every packaging, this also goes to the first question we had. Every packaging, passive specifically, is tested at certain standards, right? We have international standards, ISTA 7D, to be very common across the packaging industry, where the package performance is tested against the highs and the lows, right? So to counter that, what percentage of excursion or deviation, or let's say the variation of temperature happens, it also depends how the packaging performs in those conditions. Second thing is, if you talk about the tarmac operation, a lot of top airlines are now using cool dollies to move those products while taking and unloading or unloading to the airline, to the aircraft. So in terms of, there is no standardization. It all depends on when the next connecting flight is. If it is within an hour, it is most likely going to be remain in cool dollies and then unloaded to the next flight. If it is more than certain hours, it will definitely be offloaded, put it into the warehouse at the transshipment location, and then taken out and unloaded again.
Can I just add something based on past experience? See, the option of using a cool dolly in some airports is still given to the shipper. Okay, so I'm telling you this is a practical aspect. So many shippers, they close one eye because they want to save costs. It costs money, right? So I would suggest, and I don't know if the people would agree, when you move product in temperature control, it should be mandated that from the airport warehouse to the aircraft, it must go in a cool dolly, and that there's no negotiation about whether to use or not to use. There's a fee, and the person should be willing to pay for it. So if that is acceptable to the shippers, I don't think service providers or airports or infrastructure would have any objection.
It should be part of SOP actually. There should not be even option. I mean, it should
Perfectly.
be the part.
Yeah, absolutely agree. I agree with
so
you.
Only then it can work, otherwise not.
Yeah, I'll just like to add on here is, see, the tarmac exposure, definitely that's the biggest pain point, and that's basically the stage which has the highest severity level of the risk for the temperature. So as I mentioned in my earlier, when we were discussing, that the lane risk assessment is the tool which will give you the severity of how and what temperatures your product will be exposed to, and for how many hours. So basis on that, you can always define a better mitigation using the better technology packaging, which can actually mitigate that risk also.
Okay.
And I think a critical part of that is actually validating what you know, rather than just, okay, we'll take this solution because it's low cost. We have an assumption it's going to be on the tarmac for 2 hours, but in reality that can be different. So it's absolutely essential that you qualify and validate the solution that you're using and the lane that it's traveling on.
I'd like to thank the panelists for this very enlightening discussion and sharing of information. And I would request you to kindly give an applause to them. Maybe we can discuss after. Okay, we are available offline if there are any more questions.
Guys, last day, last session. Put in all your energy. Come on, let's hear it for them. That was a very insightful and knowledgeable panel discussion. Thank you so much. And now I would request Mr. Mohit Mewani to join us on stage to felicitate our remarkable industry leaders along with our remarkable moderator, Mr. Ryan Viegas. We would first like to felicitate Mr. Jess Pharma from CSafe. Next, we would like to felicitate Mr. Rituparna Chaturvedi. Next, we would like to felicitate Mr. Vishal Jaiman from TP World. Next, we would like to felicitate Mr. Pratyush Kumar from Glenmark Pharmaceuticals. Next, we would like to felicitate Mr. Surendra Deodhar from Reliance Life Sciences. And now, ladies and gentlemen, we want to felicitate our absolutely remarkable moderator for this session, Mr. Ryan Viegas. Can I have everyone in the front for a group photograph, please? Everyone together, center of the stage. And we're going to be having a smiling group photograph. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Mewani, and thank you to our wonderful panelists for today.